Theirs is the fevered fury of life without love, goading them to lure men into the den of bloodthirsty moon monsters, driving them to tempt men in the deadly cave of moon gold, flaming into a wild lust to conquer man and destroy the world.
Hi, and welcome once again to the Infernal Brains Podcast. I'm Tarkus from tarstarkus.net.
And I'm Todd Statman from Die Danger, Die Die Kill, a.k.a. FourDK.
And today we have a very special edition of the Infernal Brains Podcast because we have a special guest brain. It's Carol Borden from the Cultural Gutter.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Carol. Yeah, Carol is here to give us a much-needed female perspective for this episode because we're taking on a pretty exhaustive topic, which is the idea of planets ruled by women with their designs on Earth, and in particular the men of Earth, which when you get into it is an insanely robust little subgenre, especially during the 50s and 60s. So we come to this already exhausted by the topic. We were watching, I think, Carol, you were watching films this morning, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I spent the whole day yesterday watching films for this, so.
Yeah, I was cramming as well, and at least one of them put me to sleep, so we'll get to that one.
Yeah.
I've been annoying people all week on Twitter with them.
Yeah, and some great screen caps, so that's been a good visual component. So, yeah. We'll find the theme as we're talking about it, but what I will say about these films is that each one individually is stupid, but collectively, I think the fact that there are just so many of them and it's just this theme that won't die, I think that must mean something. I don't know what that is, but I'm hoping by talking about it, we'll reach some kind of understanding and then never talk about these kind of movies again.
Yeah, we could argue whether, this is more or less disturbing of the subtext that's in horror films with the women being killed. So whether the invading space women is better or worse.
Right, yeah, I mean, I think some people think of these as like kick-ass, and sometimes there are some kick-ass, but they're enjoyable in that respect of these being kick-ass, domineering, powerful women, but there's a sinister, especially as with anything that's born in America during the 50s, there's a sinister underbelly to it. So we should get started with it. There are 3 almost identical American films from the 50s that are pretty much right at the modeled heart of this genre, those being Catwoman of the Moon from 1953, and then there's Fire Maidens of Outer Space. What year is that from?
56.
All right, on it. And then there is Missile to the Moon, which I'm guessing is the movie that put Nick to sleep. Am I right on that?
No, it was Fire Maidens of Outer Space.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I watched the MST3K version, so I was able to actually finish that, but I don't really remember what happened in it.
Yeah. The only thing people remember about the Mystery Science Theater version of that is the Black Crow Timmy who takes over during the show.
Oh, right. Yeah, because the movie was so boring, they had to create this really, I think that is one of the most plotted episodes of Mystery Science Theater ever, and it's all because Fire Maidens from Outer Space is so tedious, they had to do it to keep their viewership. But anyway, we're going to talk about Catwoman of the Moon because that came first, and my main note on that is America Goes to the Moon, brings guns and cigarettes. Carol, do you want to start us off on this with Catwoman on the Moon? What were your first impressions? What were your last impressions?
I find it a really great example because I'm very ambivalent about this whole genre. Because on one hand, the space ladies can be really, really cool, but on the other hand, there's inevitably really horrible, abusive men who bring them in line through, I don't know, kissing and smacking around.
Yeah.
And this movie has both at such extremes. Like, on one hand, there's the cat ladies, and they're like beat ladies having happenings on the moon with their 2-year-old civilization of leotards and liturgical dance.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like these horrible doughy men.
Yeah.
And and sometimes in these movies you can see the appeal of some of the men, but these ones are, like you say, like red-blooded 50s guys who are taking care of business and dealing with the lesbian threat.
Yes. Yeah, the misogyny in this movie is so thick that you could spread it on toast, you know. You could just, it's pretty insane. And the depiction of women is, I think, like, right in the beginning of this movie, you pretty much know, it tells you what you're in store for. I think something that's really indicative of this movie's sexual politics is the scene after they've gone through launch and they all step out of their space hammocks and into their rolling office chairs that they have inside their spaceship. As soon as they wake up, all the men diligently go to their control consoles and start working away, while Mary Windsor, who plays Helen, who's the navigator, gets up, takes out a compact, and starts putting on makeup while the other guys are working.
It compensates for her wearing pants.
Right, exactly. Yeah. The other thing that struck me about the opening is that how it prepares you for the movie is in that whole launch scene, each of the actors gives you their own individual interpretation of the rigors of G-force, and it gives you a preview of the panoramic range of bad acting that you're going to see. One guy looks like he's reliving a childhood trauma, and Sonny Tufts looks like he's mildly constipated, and then Mary Windsor is asleep and looks like she's dreaming that like a kitten is pawing her face or something. It's pretty wide range there, but I digress. Yeah, this movie is really foul in terms of its sexual politics. I can't really put it any other way. And the Moon Women are pretty cool. Definitely, they got it going on. Yeah, and the character of Kip, who's the one who, when I was going through these films, I was looking at which films the aliens are conquered by love, because that tends to be a common theme. And in this one, they're conquered by love, I think, especially. Anyway, I'm jawing too much about it. Why don't you talk about the role Helen plays in the whole? I thought that was really interesting and sort of repulsive, is the role that she has in the whole scheme of the Catwomen.
So Helen has been sent dreams from Alpha, the head of the Catwomen, that have allowed her to navigate almost in a dreamlike state, taking them from the Earth to the Moon, and then on the Moon to the secret cave that's like a decompression chamber, filled with moon spiders. And the Catwomen are in fact manipulating Helen into bringing humans to Earth so they can steal the humans' rockets and then take over and impose 2 million year civilization on us.
Because they have the women have the power to control other women.
Yeah.
But not men, as I think it was one point. It's like they asked why they weren't interested in the men, and they're like, because we can't control them, but the women we can control.
Yeah, and I remember them talking about they thought it was unlikely that they could get an entire rocket crew of women.
That's right.
Helen. I did think it's interesting that she's a navigator, because now she'd be like a communications officer.
Right, yeah. Even though we don't really see her navigating, but because it's all programmed into her mind. She knows to land on the dark side of the moon, and she knows where the cave is. And there's all kinds of very unsubtle foreshadowing that Helen is not as she seems, where she's like, I feel I've seen this all before, and she does a lot of sudden staring off into the middle distance and things like that. I was kind of sad. I was actually very sad to see Mary Windsor in this movie, because she's one of the great femme fatales of 50s film noir. She was in Kubrick's The Killing. She was in the Narrow Margin, which is a great film noir. Force of Evil. Hell's Half Acre, and some of that she did after this. So she had better things waiting for her, but this is definitely a nadir for her, I'd say.
Yeah, oh, and this Catwomen also used her to do their seducing. Like, they did a little seducing at the party, but mostly she was the one that was doing all the seducing, and they were making her love someone she didn't love.
Right. She causes tension between the captain, Laird, played by Sonny Tufts, and Kip, the co-pilot, played by Victor Jory, who's the guy who is able to snap her out of her moon trance by by manhandling her, basically.
It's not hurting too much, he says.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, at one point, the second time he does it, it's really creepy because her eyes kind of roll back in her head. She's kind of like, "Ooh, hurt me, Kip. Don't stop."
Yeah. If I were Helen, I would give them up in a minute and go off with the Catwoman.
Yeah. The Catwomen are definitely very cool in this movie. As played according to the credits by the Hollywood Cover Girls, and I asked a friend of mine, Mike Barnum, who's an expert on American B movies, if that was a real thing, if there really was a Hollywood Cover Girls, like if they appeared in any movies, and he did not know, but I couldn't find anything else on them. Not that they need anything else, beyond this.
Yeah, I think probably a marketing thing, although it could be just the name of a modeling group, and because the people who made this went on to barely do anything else, the group disappeared along with them. So.
Yeah. Well, there's kind of a burlesque aspect to all of these movies too. So there is always like the dance, the exotic sort of Les Baxter sort of dance number that happens in almost all of them. I was even thinking that we could include something like Doris Wishman's Nude on the Moon in this, because it's sort of a precursor to that, except that in an age when they couldn't have explicit nudity, but it's that same sort of burlesque sort of idea to it. And the only other thought that I had about this film is, who vetted this crew that's on this ship? Like, there's Helen, who's obviously got her problems, and then the co-pilot and the captain are at each other's throats. And then there's the guy Walt, who's the engineer, who when they wake up and he first sees Helen is like, "Say," and it's like, wait, have you not seen her before? Didn't you guys train for this mission? And the fact that when they're getting ready to go out on the moon and they put on the boots, and Helen's like, "These boots are heavy," and it's like, didn't you train? I mean, have you worn these boots before? So I'm thinking it was something like, moon launch at 4:30, meet us in the parking lot if interested, or something like that, because it's a very weird crew they've got there. But yeah, that guy Walt, obviously that guy is a grifter with some kind of criminal record, that they could easily have been uncovered.
His mustache, just his mustache.
Yeah.
I loved that they flew in what looked like an army field office. Like, they have really heavy 50s office chairs and those cots.
Yeah. And they might have been somebody's office too.
The fact they were in cots, not strapped down or anything. Yeah, I mean, this is a very early film in the cycle of American 50s sci-fi films. It's from 1953, so I can't forgive it. But if you wanted to forgive it for some of its naivete, I guess you could. But
I love that. I'm so glad they have office chairs, and not just office chairs, but ones that look like they're made out of corrugated steel.
Yeah. And with wheels on them.
Yeah, they roll around them.
Yeah. And they're not even nice big ones like they have in Rom Patouille Orion, that German show. They have nice big high back leatherette office chairs, but these are like, the kind of chairs that the file clerks would sit on or something. Anyway, Nick, we've been sort of talking over you. Do you want to give your overall opinion of Catwoman of the Moon?
Yeah, it's not really one of my favorite films. It's like it's actually one of the first ones I reviewed on my site like 10 years ago. But the major, besides like the cool Catwoman thing, the major come away for me is how like it, even though it's early 50s, it still has a lot of the 50s sci-fi movie space exploration things going on, where it's a lot of people sitting around under G-force with really slow ship maneuvers, and then a lot of I guess it's supposed to be tension. Is it, will this ship be able to make it type stuff? But like, it's 20 minutes in, so of course, they're not going to kill everybody off right away. So.
Right. Yeah, they have to have all those sort of boilerplate perils of space travel. There's always actually, I don't know if this one did have the meteor shower. Oh, there's a meteor once they land. But I think the other two, I think Fire Maidens and Missile to the Moon both had them encounter a meteor storm in space, with the meteors looking like balls of tinfoil. Yeah, well, I can't say this is one of my favorites either. I doubt I'll be writing it up anytime soon. But, I'm glad. I actually watched it twice, which is crazy. I won't be watching it again. Shall we move on to our Mexican neighbors? Or does anyone have anything else to add on Catwoman? Or subtract? Even.
Yeah, we can go back to Missile to the Moon later.
Oh, okay. Well, no, if you really want to talk about it, we can. If you need to talk about it, we can talk about it.
Well, if you didn't like Catwoman and the Moon, 5 years later they basically remade it as Missile to the Moon, and it's a lateral move as far as quality goes, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So they improved slightly the space aspect, where instead of just being random doughy guys, they actually had criminals on the ship who were kidnapped by a scientist who turned out to actually be in league with the Moon Women.
Right. He was kind of, they kind of condensed the characters a bit, because the scientist sort of plays the role of Helen, where and I think even that isn't the queen of the, is it the moon this time, or is it this one? One of them, they go to the moon of Jupiter or something like that. But
it's,
I think
Fire Maidens.
Okay, Fire Maiden. Sorry about that. But the queen, I think, is named Alpha in Missile to the Moon too. I think because he's been canoodling. He's been to the moon before and has been canoodling with Alpha. We find out later. So. Canoodling. I'm old.
Yeah, they reuse all the space ladies' names. And then I can't tell if they reuse the spider puppet or if it's a different spider puppet. But I know the spider puppet in Missile to the Moon shows up in Misa of Lost Women, so it might be the same spider puppet in all three. But I'm sure someone will correct me. A couple of years from now. So.
That spider puppet has had as illustrious a career as Sampot San's Crocodile from Crocodile. Yeah, I don't even think I got to the spiders. I saw the Rock Man, which was kind of cool. But this one had the difference is that rather than the assigned crew that doesn't make sense that we had in Catwoman, we had the two hunky young fugitives from the law who stow away on the spaceship, and then stowaways are a big theme in these movies too. And then the scientist decides to use them as the pilots of the ship, which it could happen to you. But this one was difficult. And you, Carol, you didn't watch Missile to the Moon.
No, I didn't. I watched about 10 minutes of it, and it was all Catwoman of the Moon. Like, the people, as you say, make more sense in it, and the guys aren't such a projection of post-war anxiety about the place of men, but they don't have the Catwomen, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting artifact, but it's not,
Yeah.
It failed to live up to the hype of remakes, and it's probably a predecessor of terrible remakes.
Well, and it's
exactly.
Stamina. I just basically didn't have time, so.
If you're not going to have time for a movie, that's an ideal movie to not have time for.
Well, what I did is I watched Ship of Monsters instead.
Good choice. Now, Tars, do you still want to do a separate episode about Ship of Monsters? Because you were saying that earlier. Because we were gonna discuss. I mean, we have to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
But
I'd still be interested. At this point, it'd probably be like a year from now or more.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about it now.
Right.
But,
all right,
yeah.
We just gave you a preview of the Infernal Brains 2015.
Yep.
Okay, shall we talk about Planeta de las Mujeres Invasoras, which is the last time I will say that. Try to say that in Spanish. This is Planet of the Female Invaders.
Yep.
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 Okay.
From 1967.
Yeah, Mexico really loved this whole genre, the idea. I think the Mexican cinema of the 60s really loved all-female everything, because you get movies where there's like all-female it's like Invasion of the Female Vampires, or Santo had a movie where he fought an all-female group of werewolves. There was that Rocambole movie where he fought, I don't know what they were supposed to be. I think the translation of the title was Rocambole versus the Harpies, where they were these women that had been turned into murderous hags by some kind of beauty potion or something like that. But anyway, they like to pit their male heroes against scourges of women. So this movie is... Did either of you watch Gigantes Planetarios, I think is what the prequel to this movie is called? Did either of you watch that?
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
I watched it. I didn't like it as much as the Planet of the Female Invaders.
Yeah, it's a lot more... Anyway, this is... Planet of the Female Invaders is a direct sequel made the same year to a film called Planetary Giants, I think is the translation of that. And Planetary Giants is a much more sober treatment of space travel. I mean, and that's within the realm of goofy Mexican sci-fi cinema, but it doesn't have the cheesecakey elements that this movie has in huge doses. It seems like they kind of decided to make up for, how straightforward the first movie was by just loading this one with all kinds of Mexican movie bombshells. And it's directed by Alfredo B. Crevena, who is a German director, a German transplant, started his career in Germany and came to Mexico. And he spoke of having a system where he could make 4 movies in 8 weeks. And I think that was basically by reusing cast sets and resources over and over again and filming films right on top of each other, which he obviously did in this case. So, Nick, do you want to give the overview of this title?
Okay, so basically the female invaders, their goal is to kidnap people from Earth in order to steal their lungs to use so they can breathe on Earth and therefore invade. And through the course of the film, it's discovered that the lungs of adults are too used up, but the lungs of children are just right. So it'll culminate in the end where they're stealing a bunch of children from a school. And so our heroes, part of them are kidnapped in the beginning and the other half go to the planet by the middle of the film. They have to stop the theft of all the children as well as deal with all the planetary politics on the all-female planet.
Right. Yeah, it can be. There's a lot of heroes in this movie. There's a lot of main characters, and it can be confusing if you haven't seen the first one because they introduced them all in the first one, and then this one they just start running. So there's a guy who's a boxer who's being chased by gangsters, and that comes from the first movie, and then there's like the professor and his secretary and all that stuff. But yeah, I thought one thing that was interesting about this movie is that the Invasoras weren't after the menfolk in this movie. They wanted to invade the Earth but they were just after children's lungs. And I think that was also they're described as soulless women, or women without souls. And so I think the idea that they would, that they would kill children, they had to put that in there to really drive that home, so.
I loved that. I thought it was a great change from the previous ones. They're all about Venus needs men.
Yeah, exactly.
And I loved their trick. I loved that they tricked people into their spaceship at a carnival. They just happen to land their flying saucer at a carnival where there's a trip to the moon ride that looks exactly like their spaceship, which is very fortuitous. Yeah. Very, very convenient. That's good. I like seeing them take tickets from potential passengers too.
Go ahead, Carol.
Just
sorry.
Please bring your lungs on board.
Why do you want me to remove my shirt? I just thought of something that I wanted to add to the discussion of the earlier movies as far as a weird trope. And it was the thing, and it's a line that's repeated in both Fire Maidens and Catwoman, and it's probably in Missile in the Moon too, is that the idea where in Catwoman in the Moon there's the part where one of the young crew member is wooing one of the Catwomen, and he says, "What happened to all your menfolk?" And she goes, "You're the first man that I've ever seen." And that exact same thing happens in Fire Maidens too.
Yes, I had that in my notes as one of the tropes.
And at the same time, there's sort of this femdom aspect to the women, and this idea, especially in Devil Girl from Mars, that Naya, the Devil Girl from Mars, is like very severe older dominatrix type. She kind of reminded me of the host of that show, The Weakest Link, like a stern British dominatrix. So I think it's interesting, that combination of that they're sexless, but rather than sort of the virgin / whore, it's like the virgin / dominatrix,
The dom submissive.
The dom submissive,
It's like Fire Maidens, they all belong to their father, and they spend all their time dancing for their father.
Right.
And he just gives them away, and they just accept that. They're like, even the woman who revolts against them is like, well, by the law of Atlantis, I'm yours now. And then, at the other end, there's Devil Girl of Mars.
Yeah, and Devil Girl of Mars does not give a shit about the
No.
men. That's why I kind of... And the other thing that I thought was interesting about that is that it was the only one of these movies that I recall in which they make explicit reference to there being an actual war between the sexes on the planet that she came from. Like, there's usually the description of why there are no men on the planet is usually kind of fudged. It's a little fuzzy, but this one they said is when the women were emancipated, it led to a war between the sexes, and the men were annihilated. So it was basically a genocide of men. I like that. They're
not messing around with subtext.
They're not messing around with subtext at all. And just the fact that that was a weird movie because it was actually British and based on a stage play, and it seemed very much like a British movie based on a stage play, and it all takes place in the pub of a inn on the Scottish moors. So I was kind of thinking of it as like The Lodger plus flying saucers, But anyway, I'm sorry to take us out of the other film we were discussing, which is actually a pretty fun film, but I did want to point out that you're the first man I've ever seen. Someone's fantasy, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, sorry, where were we at?
They were kidnapping people for their lungs?
They were kidnapping people for their lungs.
Yes.
And it wasn't about repopulating their planet or anything like that. And this film, the top billed stars of this film, who weren't in the first film, are all the women. And there's like a really great cast of Mexican B-movie starlets, I guess, if I can say the queen of the planet, which it was the planet called Sibylla, I think, is played by Lorena Velasquez, who has a double role. She plays the kindly sister of the queen, too, who's called Albernia. And Lorena Velasquez is in tons of B-movies from the 60s, a lot of lucha movies. She starred with Santo a lot. She was the lead vampire woman in Santo versus the Vampire Woman. And she was also in the Wrestling Women movies. She was one of the Wrestling Women. And she was a Miss Mexico in 1960, and she yet refused to participate in the Miss Universe competition that year, which is interesting. I don't know what the story with that is, but I think that's kind of cool. And she was the daughter of a Mexican character actor named Victor Velasquez, who also appeared in Santo versus the Vampire Woman. So, small world, the Mexican film industry of the 60s. And then as the two emissaries of the Invasoras on Earth who wear these weird, I think, Carol, you'll probably have something to say about this too, but I describe them as head cod pieces. They have these weird abutments coming out of their heads. And one of those is Martesia, played by Elizabeth Campbell, who was an American actress, who also starred in tons of lucha movies and Mexican genre movies. She's in a lot of spy movies from that period. And then Eritrea is played by Maura Monti, who's one of my favorites, and she's an Italian-born model and actress, and she's most loved, I think, by genre fans for Batwoman, where she plays Bikini Batwoman, and Cazadores de Espías, Las Psychedelicas, and another one of my favorites, SOS Bikini Conspiracy. All of these, part of the Criterion collection.
I was thinking, no, don't tell them about the Bikini Conspiracy.
Yeah, exactly. It's out. We're ripping the lid off the bikini conspiracy here. Yeah, so they're really up front in this movie. I think this movie's a pretty fun, compared to something as noxious as Catwoman, I thought it was pretty fun. What do you guys think of it?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I liked that it changed the goals of the women, so it was less about, finding men to just finding, body parts, and then the men were secondary, and even the various men there tried their luck with the queen, and they only were sort of successful, and even then,
right.
She was just like, yeah, whatever, if I got time, I'm busy with our plans.
Yeah, the guy who made the most headway was the professor who rockets to the planet to save his boxer buddy, and he has in tow the boxer's manager, whose name is Taquito, and he is played by Jose Angel Espinoza, aka Furasquilla, in quotation marks. And I will just give a dire warning to people who are just getting into Mexican genre cinema: beware of any actor who has a quotation bracketed a nickname as part of their name, because that spells bad comic relief ahead. But Professor, the hero, Professor Wolf, he has to masquerade as kind of a dissolute, bad guy in order to win his way into the queen's heart, and he pretends to be a fugitive from the law, and he's smoking cigarettes, and he's a hard drinking guy, and that works. He manages to gain her trust by acting evil, because she's so evil that she would use a death ray to kill all the adults on Earth so that they could more easily steal the children and their lungs.
And she's so evil that she can recognize all the things that he does as signs of evil, with his smoking and his drinking.
Right.
Her heart just knows.
Yes. And that's a theme in the movie, too, because in the first movie he has to masquerade as is a dissolute crumb bum in order to attract the alien spy's attention, and he just goes to a bar and smokes a cigarette, and then like
Venus needs smokers.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously spent 20 years of my life as one of the most evil people on the planet. I definitely sat in a lot of bars and smoked a lot of cigarettes. I didn't know, but I'm better now, so that's a recovery narrative for the ages.
Yeah, but you'll never get recruited as part of an alien spy conspiracy anymore.
Yeah. Yes. I think my favorite line in this movie was something like, "The ray of death is for adults only," which should have appeared at the beginning of the movie. Anything else you guys want to say about this movie?
I really enjoyed it. I found it very joyful and entertaining, and it doesn't have a lot of the meanness that some of the other space ladies can have, or movies can have.
Yeah.
And I did find their helmets fascinating.
Yeah, the costumes were very, very fascinating. The only thing the movie was missing was a dance. If the sentries with the weird hats had all done a dance. I also noticed the planet is like, it's like a real surveillance state. That was one motif of the movie I really liked too. And there seems to be no civilians. There's just the queen, and everybody else is her sentries in the codpiece hats. But then she stresses over and over again how she's able to see and hear everyone at all times, and that's reinforced by there being these big view screens in every room where the captives are. Yeah, with her face or her eye looking at people, and there's some really striking. It's very arty. It's almost like French New Wave kind of stuff in those scenes. It's a good looking movie. It's you know, it's cheap, but Crvena definitely knew how to film things to best advantage, you know.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Czech movies that were coming out in the late 60s.
Yeah,
There's
that's a good point.
Look.
Did either of you watch Blue Demon and another Invasoras movie, Blue Demon versus the Invasoras, or versus the female invaders? That's okay.
Yeah.
It's not.
I made it halfway through before the show started.
Okay. Oh, that was what you were watching this morning. Yeah, I've watched it and reviewed it before, so I just kind of refreshed my memory. That it was actually a little better than I remembered it. It's a very cheap movie, but that movie has what distinguishes it is in that movie the space women are after Earth's men, but in that movie they have a very specific list of particular men that they want. They've already done their, you know, they've done their window shopping, you know, and they've maybe using the internet or something, but they've found the guys that they want. And so when they get to Earth in their really shoddy looking spaceship that looks like a marble basically dropped into an aquarium, they go about, there's like a businessman, there's a truck driver, there's a scientist, and then there's a guy who's a record executive. And so one of the Invasoras goes to the record executive and she auditions for him, and it gives the actress the opportunity to sing a song. There's a whole musical number in there, which is pretty awesome.
I appreciate that she did that before she applied the mind-controlling kiss.
Yeah, right. Well, because she wanted his unbiased opinion, I think. But, she's a, you know, and they have something called exotopic power that enables them to control men, turn men into basically zombies by kissing them. And it also is that the exotopic power that resulted in all of the men in their galaxy being wiped out. And I'm not sure how that happens, but that's actually the alternate title of the movie is Blue Demon versus the Seductresses. So, but that's their thing. They actually seduce men into zombiedom, into a trance.
And then the side effects eventually kill them.
And then yes, right. And I think it's if they're too far away from the source of the power, it kills the person that they kiss, right? And this is one where love conquers the aliens. A couple of the aliens fall for hunky Earthmen, and one of them falls for a hunky police detective who gets her to sabotage the security system on the spaceship so that Blue Demon, who is summoned like halfway through the movie, can come aboard and show them what's what. I don't remember exactly what happens at the end, but I'm pretty sure it involves wrestling.
That's a safe bet.
Yeah.
Were you clear on what the space ladies in this were made out of? Because there's that whole beginning part where they have that crystal ball that's basically like take the form of beautiful women, and so
right. Oh, mine. Oh, mine was not a subtitled copy, so
mine wasn't, but a little bit I could understand.
Oh, okay. No, yeah, I don't know if they ever show them in any other form, but yeah, they kind of materialize in their little mini togas.
And there's like the command lady in the crystal ball.
Yeah, who's just sort of a disembodied head inside the crystal ball. So yeah, there's that. And what else should we go on to? Carol, anything you any of your viewings that you want to move on to, or do you want to talk? Shall we touch on Ship of Monsters, or?
I'm always happy to talk about Ship of Monsters. I don't want to ruin the future, though.
No, it's all right. We can talk about it. I'm sure we'll have plenty of other stuff to say too.
Right.
A year from now, when we half forget what we say here.
Right. So. We'll destroy all traces of this episode.
Sometimes I'd like to make a map of the solar system with all these space lady planets on them. Like,
yeah.
I think about how
you could call it like a map of women-friendly planets.
Miss Andrews' solar system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have to mention Ship of Monsters because I think it's pretty much the first one of these Mexican movies with the female invaders, because it dates back to 1960.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, like bathing beauties from space come to Earth. I think they're from Venus, actually, aren't they?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we have Lorena Velasquez again, and the other face lady is Ana Bertholepi. I think I'm probably mispronouncing that, but she was a big star back then, a big pin-up in Mexico in those days. So there's a lot of oomph in this movie.
She died in October, actually. So.
Oh, did she? Okay. Yeah, there's one movie that she's in. It's a lucha movie called The Invisible Monster or something like that, where she actually plays herself. It's really weird. It's like a meta lucha movie where the luchador has to protect the singer and actress Ana Bertholepi from the invisible monster who's obsessed with her, and it's very strange. And there was a lot of footage of her performing in the movie, doing songs and stuff like that. It's really, I can't remember the name of the movie right now. It's something like The Invisible Killer or something like that. And it's one of the movies that has a fake Santo. It's not a real wrestler. It's someone like the Golden Mask or something like that. But that's for another episode, I suppose.
Yeah, Ship of Monsters. It became like a big thing in monster magazines. I guess would have photos of the monsters.
Yeah.
And that's like where I first heard about it, was that.
Yeah. Because the twist in this one is that they are trying to repopulate their planet, and the men on their planet have died out, and so the mission is to repopulate their planet, but it's not specifically with Earthmen. They're actually going to various planets and collecting male examples of various alien species. So they have this whole menagerie of weird, weird suitmation beasts. They only end up on Earth by accident. I think their ship has a malfunction and they crash, and then they become fixated on this singing cowboy.
This movie so much.
Go ahead, Carol. You can pick it up from there.
Well, I'm not sure how to pick it up because, like, basically that's it. They become fixated on the singing cowboy and they want to take him back to Venus.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, periodically, different one of the monsters or the alien men show up in their elevator shaft and they have to, I don't know, spray them back.
Right, yeah, there's the constant threat of them escaping, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and there's only 2 space ladies in this. There's basically, like, the good space lady and the secretly evil vampire space lady who
That's right.
works together with the captive alien guys to try to take over the Earth, except for they're not apparently interested in taking over the Earth so much as eating the Earth, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, and I remember the main ones I remember are the Cyclops and then the troll with the huge exposed brain, because they're the same
Saucerman.
Yeah, those same costumes are used, like, 10 years later, they use those same costumes in Santo and Blue Demon versus the Monsters, and they definitely looked worse for wear, like they'd just been taken out of the warehouse, out of mothballs. But so I know those, but then there's also something that looks like a dog skeleton or something. It's like a puppet skeleton of some kind.
Yeah. That's the one that goes,
right.
all the time.
Yeah.
But from Twitter told me that he was from a planet where they had an atomic accident and they're all skeletons now. And that exposed brain is actually the Prince of Mars, and she says that he will never forgive the space ladies for what they've done to him.
Yeah. Wow. That person had a lot of insight into the...
She speaks more Spanish than I do.
Oh, I see.
I think they're all, like, the Cyclops guy, he's a leader, too, of his group.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they actually get their own credit in the opening credit. It says, I'm going to say it in English, featuring the monsters of the galaxy. One is named Ook, Otter, Togwall, Tor, and Zoc. And I think Zoc was the skeleton thing, as I recall.
It makes sense that they're leaders, too, because they keep forming, like, committees with votes on what they're going to do, and it's always led by the guy with the exposed brain.
Mm-hmm. I also like in this movie how they steal so much special effects footage from other films that the Venusian women's spaceship changes appearance in every shot because they're using some different American sci-fi movie footage for each of them. I think this is a really great exemplar of everything that's fun about Mexican sci-fi movies, or goofy old Mexican sci-fi movies. What do you guys think about it? Who cares? Who cares what I think? Let's get to rockin'.
I think, like, speaking of rocking, I think this one's also interesting. With you were talking about, usually the Space Lady movies have musical scenes, and the Space Ladies either sing or dance or both. And in this one, there's just the singing cowboy.
Yeah.
Till the end, when Tor the robot falls in love with his jukebox. But
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an awesome robot in this movie too. Right. It sings at the end.
And makes boing noises.
Yeah, it has a little coil sticking off it too. Also, Devil Girl from Mars has an awesome robot too. That is one of its saving graces. But the Ship of Monsters robot holds a special place in my heart.
He's from another planet where everyone died because of the atomic radiation, and he's the only one left. So that's why they pick him up.
The robot?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know the robot was part of their menagerie. I thought he was part of their crew.
No, they pick him up on some planet when they were looking for them in, so I guess they realized he was useful. So.
You and I saw a subtitled version of this. We saw it at the Pacific Film Archives. It wasn't that long ago, but you obviously remembered it a lot better than I did.
Oh, I watched it last night. So.
Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah, and my DVD copy does not have subtitles either, so I was in the dark through a lot of that. Missed a lot of the nuances, as you might say. Carol, you mentioned a couple other films of this type that you wanted to bring up. Do you want to?
I think that Florabella and Barbella and Gamera versus Gyron are really interesting space ladies. They're more like the women who are searching for lungs. They have a plan of their own that doesn't have to do with love.
Right. Right.
And love, in fact, plays no part in it, although they do have a penchant for children brains, so I think they might approve the lung plan.
But and I think like the evil queen from Planet of the Female Invaders, they don't really have any pronounced maternal feelings, because they don't really have any qualms about cutting a little kid's brain out.
No.
Yeah.
It's just more efficient.
Yeah. And do they eat the brains? I forget. Why do they want the brains?
Oh man, I don't remember. It sure looks like a brain feast.
I mean, I've seen that movie probably 7 times, so I should know too.
Yeah, same here.
I can't remember either. I've seen that like a ton of times too. But yeah, it's interesting because like it's evil space ladies, but yeah, there's the no love aspect at all. But because they're menacing their children, the 2 little boys, it's still sort of subtextual. So like it's really just bizarre. But like,
yeah. Well, I can't remember what the line in the trailer for Catwoman was, but there's a great line that's something like "Women without love, luring men into the cave of gold," But there's that idea of, oh yeah, they don't need men. Okay, well let's just see about that, and then eventually their weakness, will be exposed, by the hunkiness of the men, either the Mexican or the American men. But it's it's interesting that this theme just kept coming up so much.
What is this thing you call love?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Also, it shows up on Star Trek too, of Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
Speaking of a trope, yeah.
Oh, and we were talking about Queen of Blood a little earlier. And she sort of goes the other end where she's just reproducing. She's just going to use you for reproducing her babies, and she's going to lay eggs all over everything and take over that way.
Yeah, and that's sort of making a monster out. I mean, there's definitely the recurring theme in all these movies is this otherness of women, women as aliens, And by the way, Carol, I forgot to ask you, on your planet, what is the preferred method for disposing of all the male babies that are born? Do you put them on top of a high peak? Do you put them out to sea? Or is there some kind of a ceremonial pyre that you throw them into? Please tell us.
Well, we used to do that, but now do the Venusian method, where somehow we have a nuclear accident and all the males just die. And he remains super beautiful.
Yeah, there's the controlled nuclear accident is a good method of culling the herd, definitely. But yeah, there's this idea of the women as being alien to men. Which is it's not too hard to see where all that comes from. And that it comes from, you always hear, it's like a stereotypical thing. People say, oh, well, Mexico is such a macho culture. And, well, America is a very macho culture, too. And obviously there's a lot of men who are just terrified. The most terrifying idea possible would be a world ruled by women. And women who've evolved in the company of only women coming to the planet of men and then or into the world of men and trying to enforce their crazy alien ideas. And then in a movie like Queen of Blood, you have their very physiology and the whole fact that they can birth life, having that turned into something horrifying, which I mean, I guess, you see that in Alien too. Yeah. I mean, that's like something that comes up again and again.
That's like where the alien, they send the DNA code and then they grow the DNA and it turns into the woman alien that is desperate to have a alien baby.
I saw that in the theater, and for some reason someone had brought her 9-year-old daughter with it.
Oh gosh.
And during the hot tub scene, the little girl started shouting, "Kill him! Kill him!" And I was just like, you know where you are in this movie.
Wow.
Yeah, so maybe little alien girl gone to the movies.
Yeah. So not the most healthy sexual politics in these movies, I'd say. To the point where evaluating them, it does come down to going, well, this one wasn't as mean-spirited. I'll say, like, the Mexican movies, most of them are pretty fun because they seem fairly lighthearted, and there isn't that mean-spiritedness that you see. I mean, the Catwoman on the Moon is incredibly mean-spirited and just resoundingly misogynist, and I don't see that in the Mexican movies quite so much. It just seems like everybody wants to have a good time. They're definitely not enlightened sexually, but
Well, and it seems like they use the resonance kind of them being female aliens, so it's particularly horrible that the Queen of Sibila wants to use children lungs. But it would still be horrible if you had, like, the controller of Planet X saying, we need your children lungs so we can breathe.
Right. I think with the Mexican films, and I may be wrong, but I find the Mexican the women stars of these movies are very charismatic. They have I find them so interesting and powerful that it's not. In a movie like the Catwoman or the Fire Maidens, it seems like the Catwomen are sort of more like a hive than there's any one standout character. But
the Mexican ones have characters, and Catwoman on the Moon has tableaus.
Yes, exactly. That's a good point. Yeah. They're just sort of displayed. There's definitely a lot of display in the Mexican movies too, but I think someone like Lorena Velasquez, I think she does a great job in Planet of the Female Invaders, where she plays the dual role. And I think when I first reviewed it, I said this is a demonstration of, like, the hard work that can go into being a B-movie heroine, because she's, like, really over the top as the evil queen. She's very over the top, and she really plays that to the hilt. And then as she has to play the virtuous one, she does that really well too. It's all very broad strokes, but that's exactly what this kind of movie needs, and I think she does a great job. And the other two too, I think, do great as well. So I think, or maybe it's just I have a thing for these actresses, so it's okay. But
well, if Lorena Velasquez, like, she does the twins subtly enough that you can tell which one is which, even when they switch clothing at the end.
True. True. Yeah, she does a really good job in that.
Yeah, I kind of honestly think they have characters, and so I evaluate them as characters more than I evaluate them as, like, anxiety about reproduction and gender roles. And you can't escape that with Fire Maidens, because there's basically two female characters that have speaking parts, and mostly they dance, and the Catwomen are ciphers.
Yeah, there's only three of the Catwomen that have speaking parts, and aside from Alpha, who's the leader, the other two have. Well, there's the one girl who's the I've never seen a man before. And that's her whole role, is the virginal Catwoman. Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a pronounced difference between these movies, and I think that's a lot of it. There's no one bothers to give any of these space ladies real characters in the American films. Did we actually make it through all of those movies? Oh, no, you know what we forgot to talk about? I'm sorry to bring this up, but just to quickly touch upon, just to show how it's not just about Mexico and the United States. This trope is worldwide. There's also a Turkish film from 1955.
Yeah, I was going to bring that one up too, yeah.
Yeah, good. Which is Flying Saucers over Istanbul, which is another film where a bunch of female aliens land in a flying saucer looking for Earth's men to repopulate their planet. And there's a couple of there's a goofy report. I mean, this one is more of an outright. Did you watch this one, Carol? I don't know if I even mentioned it to you.
You did, but I've seen it before too.
Oh, you've seen it before, yeah.
Comic relief.
This one's more in the sort of Abbott and Costello, Three Stooges go to Mars thing, but it is the same tropes, and there's a couple.
They have a robot too.
And and what I liked about that movie is that the robot, if you look at its contours, is obviously meant to be a female robot.
Yeah.
It's a gendered robot. Another film that I thought about is in the Philippines, there's the Darna movie, Darna versus the Planet Women, where the female invaders are each a different color. Each a different primary color. And I'm not sure what because I watched an unsubtitled version of that one, I'm not sure what their goal was, but definitely fits in. Mm-hmm. And there's probably millions of them that from other cultures that we have yet to see, but
yeah,
you get the idea.
It reoccurs a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There's still, the men cultures need women things, and even the odd aliens need Santa Claus type movies, so.
Yeah.
Aliens needing stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Aliens are needy.
Well, and they don't ask either.
No.
Did they ask? No.
Yeah. You'd think one of these movies they would ask, and then, well, didn't the Mysterians first ask for all of Earth's women, and then and then we refused, and that's when the shit was on, and they started, they brought Magara out and all that stuff, because I think they did ask us for our women.
But at least they were polite.
Yeah. Right. We were like, oh, I'm sorry, no. You can't have those. Okay, now have we exhausted the subject?
Yeah, because I don't think I want to talk about Zardoz.
Oh yeah. Wow. Yeah, you got to be in a special mood to talk about Zardoz.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel like talking about that either. My dad took me to see that when I was like 10 years old or something. I saw that in the theater when I was a little kid, and I was like, wow.
Did you shout, kill him, kill him?
Kill them all! Yeah. Diapers for everyone!
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe it's time to wrap this show up.
Carol, do you got anything you want to plug?
Sure. You can find anything I write about comics at theculturalgutter.com. But we also have people who write about movies, and we have people who write about romance and science fiction and fantasy. And every Thursday night, I am one of the 3 hosts of Drive-In Mob on Twitter. You can find us at driveinmob.com to get the schedule and tweet along. How's that?
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, what's the next what's Thursday's Drive-In Mob going to be? I think I might actually be able to participate this time. Do you know what the theme is?
I have to look.
Okay, I'll look. There is a website after all. I shouldn't use valuable podcasting time to find that out. And you also have your own site too. Cultural Gutter is your site too, but Monstrous Industries, is that what your other site is? Okay.
I my disparate doings and shenanigans there.
Yeah, people should check that out. You're quite an accomplished writer. I always enjoy reading your stuff.
So I guess that's it for this episode of the Infernal Brains Podcast. I'd like to thank Carol for stopping by as our special guest brain.
Thanks, Carol.
Thanks for having me.
And
sure, our pleasure.
Yeah. Yep. And until next time and next genre, the Infernal Brains are signing off.
See ya.
Where are your menfolk?
You're the first man I've ever seen.